2021 is over. The reading year is in the books. I read 104 books if I'm not mistaken. And today I'm going to share the 10 best things I read in the year. Let's go. Hello lovely book dragons and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. My name is Joanna and I love to talk about books on this channel, specifically fantasy and romance books. Today I'm going to share with you my top 10 books of 2021. Was it difficult to narrow it down? Yes, I had a few honorable mentions, which there's some books that I really enjoyed and that I wanted to put in the top 10, but I couldn't because it's a top 10 book. But this top 10 really is me. I feel like if you see it, yes, this fits who I am as a reader. And it is all fantasy, of course. I do read romance, but in 2021 I wasn't reading romance in its own thing, which is a goal for 2022. I'm gonna rate romance as its own category. I'm not gonna compare a romance book to a fantasy book. So these are all my favorites of the year. I love these books so much. If I have reviews for these books or vlogs where I read these books in, or live shows that I've participated for these books, which for some of them, for most of them I have, I will leave everything in the description and or in the cards, depending on how many cards I can put. But these books were just the cream of the crop for me. And I do have some honorable mentions, which I will quickly go through first, and then we'll go to the top 10. Very quickly, my honorable mentions are Tuesdays with Mori, which was a non-fiction book that I read, and that really impacted me in a way where there's some quotes in there that I still use in my daily life. When I ask myself certain questions, I'm like, think of this quote, and then I'm like, yes, you're right. I'm kind of like, it's like a compass, you know, like where you're lost, you look at it and you're like, oh, that's the direction I'm going in. So that book really affected me in that way, and I really liked it. Then I have Muse of Nightmares, which was a book that completely took me by surprise. I gave it 4 stars, but I really liked it a lot. It is a book that I don't know, it tackled some topics like grief and anger and all of that so well with Laini Taylor's beautiful writing. It was just a book that I have kept on thinking about since I read it, and I enjoyed it so much that I just need to put it in honorable mention. Then I have The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, The Midnight Library, and Mrs. Death. 3 books that were super melancholy, super emotional for me, that really resonated with me. I know that a lot of people didn't like, at least Addie LaRue and Midnight Library. A lot of people think it's like too much or just too sad, or a lot of people didn't connect with those books, but they really worked for me. There were topics in those books that just like resonated with me, made me cry, made me think about my own choices, about my life. And those 3 books really tackle that melancholy side of me that is constantly wondering about life and about what's the purpose of being here. So those 3 books really worked for that. So those are my honorable mentions, and now we're gonna go into my top 10. In the number 10 spot, are you ready? I own this physical copy, but it's downstairs and I was honestly too lazy to get it. So I'll insert a picture here, and that is Starsight by Brandon Sanderson. I reread Skyward. So rereads don't count, by the way, for this top 10 list. I didn't count any rereads. Rereading Skyward was really amazing. I really loved it the first time I read it, but this time I read it, I loved it even more. And then going into Starsight, I was really nervous because I'd heard so many mixed reviews about this book, honestly. And reading it was just like a warm hug. I was just always looking forward to reading it, to listening to the audiobook while I was driving, while I was doing things. And the audiobook of this is just phenomenal. And I love seeing more of the world and seeing more of like what Brandon Sanderson can create. So if you don't know about this series, this is his young adult series, young adult sci-fi series. He has another one, The Reckoners, but this one is one he's currently working on. And this is not part of the Cosmere. This is just like his YA stuff. And in Skyward, we follow our main character named Spencer, and she's part of this, she lives on this planet where they're constantly getting attacked by alien forces, and therefore they have to kind of create their space army to fight these aliens who always are attacking them. And she wants to become a pilot really badly, but her father is known as a traitor and as a coward because he defected during one of the battles. And therefore, because she's labeled the daughter of a coward, it's very hard for her. People hate her, and she has to create this really strong personality, like really aggressive, to protect herself. And I feel like she's so relatable to some aspects of me, where as a kid I also used to do that. I used to be very hard and like give myself this like personality that would push people away just so that people wouldn't bother me and annoy me and get to my weak points and to the things that would hurt me. And so I did recognize a bit of myself in Spencer. But what I love about these books is just like how innovative, how fun they are. And so Starsight follows what happens after Skyward, of course. And I really like seeing more of the world, more of the galaxy, to be honest, more of the planets and all of those things. And it's just such a fun book. And I am very much looking forward to continuing on in this series, even though I've heard a lot of mixed things about Cytonic as well. In the number 9 spot, I have a 2021 release that I was very much looking forward to. And I mean, I loved it so much. It's on this list. So it is Empire of the Vampire by J. Kristoff. J. Kristoff is one of my favorite authors. I have a video about my favorite authors, which I will leave linked up here or in the description down below. And I just love this book so much. I was really anticipating this because I've read the Nevernight trilogy by him and loved it so much. And I felt like this was going to be right up my alley. In this book, we follow the last Silver Saint, who is a vampire hunter, and he is being captured and interviewed by, I don't want to say by whom or for what, because that is a bit of a spoiler. We have 3 main timelines in this book. We have a timeline where Gabriel is a child, and where then we see how he lives in this village with his family, and how he gets taken into the Order of the Silver Saints to become this warrior. And then you see him becoming an apprentice and learning that kind of stuff. And then you have the present timeline, which is when he's being interviewed. And then you have a timeline in the middle, which is when he's a bit older, and you see that he's no longer with the Silver Saints, and he's kind of like already lost his belief, lost his faith. And so you wonder how he got from this kid who had all the faith, all the belief, and he just wanted to do this, to this man who then lost all of that, and now as he's being captured and retelling his life story. I have a vlog on this channel where I started reading this. I will leave it linked down below. You don't have my full thoughts because I didn't finish it in that vlog, but I did start it, so you do hear my thoughts of me starting this book and really, really loving it. So I will leave that link down below. But yeah, this book I loved. I love some of the quotes. I mean, I really annotated it quite heavily, if I'm gonna say so myself. Like, I have books that are annotated more heavily than this, but this one quite heavily annotated. Really loved it. I read the last, I think, 400 pages in one sitting. That tells you enough. Love this book. I am very much excited for the sequel and for other books by J. Kristoff that are in this vein of books. In the number 8 spot is, this series is funny. I have a video coming out with most disappointing and most surprising books of the year, as well as this video. And this is a quartet, and 3 of the books are in each of those videos. So one of them was the most surprising, one was disappointing, and one a favorite. And the favorite is Arm of the Sphinx by Josiah Bancroft. This is the second book in the Books of Babel. I absolutely love this book. I have a vlog on the channel where I read the first book. I will leave it linked down below, of course. And I was part of a live show for that book as well, which I will also leave linked down below. And I think I was a part of a live show for this one as well. So I will leave all of those live shows for this series in the description of this video / my video of Senlin Ascends. So the pitch of this is that in the first book, Senlin, our main character, Thomas Senlin, he goes to the Tower of Babel with his wife, Maria, after they get married on their honeymoon. But he loses her, and she tells him, hey, should we get lost, we'll meet at the top of the tower. And then, lo and behold, they lose each other, and it is the story of this man ascending this tower to find his wife. Now, that doesn't sound incredible, but it is. I just love that first book, and I love this one as well so much. I think I love this one a lot because we get a lot more of one of my main characters, which is Edith Winters, and I just love her so much. I love Alita. I love those characters so much, and we get so much more of them in this book. And I just absolutely flew through this book as well. I read Senlin and Arm of the Sphinx in the same month, which almost never happens because I always lose so much time. Like, I mean, I'm notoriously bad at finishing series, and yet I read these back to back. And then I read the third one a bit later, and then the fourth one when it came out. So this series, I will spoil my video. I felt like the conclusion was not what I was expecting. Fall of Babel was one of my most disappointing books of the year because I gave every single book, Senlin, Arm, and Hot King, I gave all of them 5 stars. This one being my favorite, and then Fall of Babel was a bit disappointing for me, but this one, absolutely loved it, worth it. I'm pretty sure that there's people who have loved the conclusion to the series, so I've heard people who felt like me, but others who didn't, so if you have been meaning to get to this series, I highly encourage you, and this one is just amazing. I love it so much. At the number 7 spot, I have a book that I was just not expecting, not at all, and that is Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. This book was a book that I'd seen people talk about, and I was like, I have no interest in reading that. It sounds weird, and I don't like weird books, which, by the way, same for Senlin. I thought, sounds weird, I don't like weird books. Maybe I find out about myself. We'll see in my year in review video that's coming. I think I like weird books, but Piranesi. I read this one during the month of June with a bunch of other people, and this was for the Shelf Space Readathon. I read this. Guys, this book is beautiful. There's not even much I want to say because this book is so short and there's so little you should know going in. I had it marked as like reading 50 pages each day and then finishing it off. And then all of a sudden I read the first 100 pages like that, like first 50, and then the rest in one sitting. I couldn't put it down. I needed to know what was going on. I needed to know. I just needed to know. And this book was so beautiful. It was so melancholy yet hopeful. It was beautiful. I love this book so much. I've gifted this book to so many people. As soon as I see this book on someone's wish list, this is what I buy for them. I've gotten this for Joana. I've gotten this for Stephanie. I feel like I got it even for someone else. I don't remember who, but love this book so much. The main pitch is that our main character, Piranesi, lives in this house, and in this house there's oceans and statues, and that's all I'm gonna tell you because like I know that it doesn't make you want to read it, but please trust me, this book is so short, you won't even be wasting time on it, and I'm sure you will love it. This has been on so many people's favorites. Like, if you don't trust me and you trust people like Jimmy Nuts, it's on his favorite list as well. I mean, guys, please, if you pick up any of the books on this list, pick this one up, because this one was my greatest surprise of the year, but I didn't want to put it in my most surprising books of the year because it is one of my favorites, so it's in this video. But this was my greatest surprise and one of my favorites of the year for sure. I love this so much. Totally unexpected, totally caught me by surprise. Amazing. In the number 6 spot, we have a sequel. And that, I actually have a vlog of me finishing that book on this channel, so I will leave it in the description of this video. A Betrayal in Winter by Daniel Abraham, the second book in the Long Press Quartet. I have a live show where I'm a part of it, and I will leave that live show in the description as well. This book, the second book in the series, so I've read only the first 2. I still haven't read past Betrayal in Winter, but this is how much I've annotated the first 2 books. So this is a bind-up of all 4 books. Betrayal in Winter is amazing. These books are so short and they pack a punch. You will love the characters. You will love everything. Once you read these books, they're just stunning. They're beautiful. And I will leave my video where I talk about this specific book in detail. I read some quotes that I really love. So I won't be talking too much about it here because I have talked about it for a long time. Like, I've talked about it on my channel before. But this series is just so incredible. The relationships, the first book is definitely slow because there's almost no action in it, but the payoff is just because of how much time Daniel Abraham spends on crafting these characters and their relationships to each other. When I read A Betrayal in Winter, there are 2 characters who meet up again after a very long time of not seeing each other, and just that reunion had me in tears because I cared so much, because he spent the whole first book creating these relationships. I loved A Betrayal in Winter so much. I definitely want to continue on with An Autumn War and The Price of Spring. I just need to do it. I don't know what I'm waiting for, to be honest. It's just because these read a little bit slower, even though Betrayal in Winter I read really fast. So maybe it was just A Shadow in Summer that was a bit of a slow read for me, but Betrayal in Winter I like flew through. But these books, they hurt me, and so I kind of put them off sometimes. But I definitely want to finish off this quartet this year. Only have 2 books to go. This series is so good. It's so good, and everyone who's read it has loved it. I haven't heard a single person who has read this and not loved it. And the thing is, not a lot of people have read it, but those who have loved it. So please pick this one up. It is just so good. It's such a good fantasy. If you love character-driven fantasy stories, this is for you. And political intrigue. Like, if you love those 2 things, you need to read this. Cracking into the top 5. This is a book that I've read, but I haven't really talked about on this channel because it happened in the later half of the year and I haven't reviewed any books. I haven't done any wrap-ups on the books I've read in the later half of the year. But this was a buddy read and it was just amazing. I was part of a live show for this one though, so I will leave that link down below. And that is The Forgetting Moon by Brian Lee Durfee. This book is everything I love. It is just, guys, it has secret passageways, it has prophecies, it has family dynamics that are just to die for. It has everything. It has everything. I love this series so much, at least this first book. I started reading the second book at a moment where I was getting in my fantasy slump, so I put it down because I was like, nope, I don't want this series to be tainted by my fantasy slump. So I put that book down. I will pick it back up when I'm better. But this first book, it was just so incredible. I will leave that live show linked in the description, like I said, because we talk about it with Petrik and with Abby and with Jimmy on Abby's channel. So thank you, Abby, for hosting that live show and for buddy reading this with me, and also Sam for buddy reading this because it was just such an amazing time. And that buddy read was amazing because we all loved it. We were all flying through these pages and nobody wanted to put it down. We were all just like, oh, I'm just gonna read one more chapter. Just kidding, we're at another 100 pages. And it was just so good. And this is like, it has grimdark moments. It has very dark and gross moments in it, but it also has just like classic fantasy tropes that are just stunning. And I love it so much. I leave every single book I talk about in the description of this video because I'm very bad at giving synopses for books because I don't know why, but I am very bad. I have all the familiar tropes and yet it's not what you think it is, and it is so good. Now at the number 4 spot, we have a book that I knew when I was reading this that this was going to be in this list, and that is of course Ship of Magic by Robin Hobb. I love Robin Hobb. She made herself one of my favorites last year. This is the only book I read by her in 2021, which is a crime. It is a crime. I will make sure that in 2022 I read more Hobb because I love her books. I love them with every fiber of my being, and yet I don't read them because they hurt me. They hurt me and they're long. And that is something that I'm going to stop doing in 2022, putting books off because they're either long or because they hurt me. If I know they're going to be my favorites, I'm going to read them. And this book is amazing. This is the first book in the Live Ship Trader series. To be completely honest, I put this series off because I tend to not like books that are set on ships. That is the thing. I don't really like that much. And I really wanted to continue reading from Fitz and the Fool and Night Eyes. I wanted to follow the Six Duchies people. But when I read this, I just loved it. I fell in love with the characters. I fell in love with the development. Like the characters when they are on page here and then here, they're already different people. So imagine over the next few books. I'm so excited to continue on. Basically here we follow part of the world where you have these ships, and when 3 generations die aboard the ships become sentient. And we are here with the ship Vivacia, and the last person, like the 3rd person, is gonna die on the ship. And our main character, she thinks that she's gonna get it, Althea. She thinks that she's gonna get the ship, but her father left the ship to her stupid brother-in-law, who is the worst. So basically that's the pitch of the story. It is amazing. Robin Hobb is amazing. I love her book so much and I cannot wait to continue with this series and all the Realm of the Elderlings this year. I don't know how far I'll get into it, but I'm gonna make sure to read as much Hobb as I can. Guys, we're on to my top 3. 2 of these are series finales. So pick up these series because if the last book is my favorite, you know. Well, okay, for one of them I put the 3rd book because the other 2 were technically rereads, but the 3rd book is amazing, so let's go. At the number 3 spot we have The Poison Song by Jen Williams, which is the 3rd and final book in the Winnowing Flame trilogy. Now, this trilogy is amazing. Book 1 I really liked, but it is the weakest of the 3. So, like, if it's such a good book already and it's the weakest, I mean, this book was everything. Honestly, this book had me laughing and crying and gasping and feeling depressed at the end. So if that isn't anything, like, this series is amazing and is one of my favorite trilogies of all time now. So in the first book we follow multiple characters. We follow Tourmaline, who is kind of like a guy who is from a race they're kind of like elves, but vampire elves, because they needed the sap from a tree to live their very long lives. But this tree is dying, and so they have turned to drinking human blood to live their long lives, which has worked for a while. But then, because they drank human blood, they got this disease called the Crimson Flux, and his whole entire race is almost dying out because of this disease. Then we follow Lady Vintage de Grazon, and she is an archaeologist who wants to understand what's going on with the land, because there's these really weird relics of things that stayed from previous wars. And the problem is that these wars happen every so often, and the only people who knew what was going on and how to defeat the people that were causing problems, and who those people even were, well, they were Tourmaline's people. But because they're dying out, no one has the knowledge anymore that we need to defeat the enemy should they come again. And every time these enemies come, it's called a reign, and the first book is called the 9th reign, so you know what's going to happen. And the problem is we don't know how to defeat these enemies because the people who knew are dying out. So she, Lady Vintage, is kind of perusing the land to see what is it going on, what are all these things. And then we have our last character, Noon, who is a witch who can create fire with her hands, and she is her own thing, and it's just awesome. I love this series so much. This 3rd book is incredible. I was part of a live show with Elle and with Ali, and we discussed the whole trilogy. spoiler free and then spoiler filled, so I will leave that link down below. I loved it. In the number 2 spot, we have a series conclusion, which is The Empire of Gold by S.A. Chakraborty. I also have, in the same vlog where I read A Betrayal in Winter, I read this, so I will leave that linked in the description. And I was part of a live show on Vish's channel because we buddy read the whole trilogy together with Ali and Abby, so I will leave the 3 live shows in the description of this video so you can check them out. This is the final book in the David Bot trilogy, one of my favorite trilogies of all time, where we follow our main character Nari, who is a con woman, and she does perform some act of magic where she summons a djinn, and then her life kind of changes from that moment on. This series is just incredible. It's amazing. It is one of my favorite. It is so lush, so beautiful, and so transportive. You have to read this series. Absolutely. I am speeding up this video because I'm running out of space on my camera, but this is just incredible. You have to read this series. It's beautiful. It is one of my favorite series of all time as well. Please, please, please pick this one up. It is just stunning. And then my favorite book of the year. My favorite book of the year, the book that made me cry the most, that hurt me the most, is Ruin by John Gwynne. This is the 3rd book in the Faithful and the Fallen quartet. So there's one book after this, which I also loved, but this one really particularly hurt me. I read it, I annotated it, I cried, I had tear-stained pages. I still have the water here of right here you see my tears, so that dried on this book. I loved it. It was amazing. It was incredible. I love this series so much. I need to continue and read more John Gwynne this year because, as always, I don't read the things I want to read because they're long and they hurt me. But amazing. Incredible. This series is just incredible. This is, again, kind of like The Forgetting Moon, where you have a lot of familiar tropes, but then he flips them on their head. And a lot of people actually say that if you liked this series, you would love The Forgetting Moon or the 5 Warrior Angels series by Brian Lee Duffy, and vice versa. So I agree, because both of them made it onto my top 10 of the year. So if you haven't read John Gwynne, please do so. Do yourself a favor, because I love these books so much. I love them. I love them. And this one particularly, it hurt me. I loved it. Yes. And that, my dear friends, is my top 10 of 2021. Let me know in the comments down below your favorite book of the year, or your top 3. I want to know your top 3, and let me know if any of these were in your favorites or if you've read them. That is going to be it from me today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and if you just want to let me know that you were here, leave any emoji that you feel like leaving. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, happy reading.